Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
Hello again, and welcome to What's the Point podcast. And today I've got a guest who's just a dynamic woman, and I'm excited to speak with her and share her knowledge and wisdom and heart with you all. Lisa Nichols is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Technology Partners. She co-founded that with her life partner, her husband, Greg. We'll get into a little bit of that too. I'm sure that's interesting. But they founded their company in 1994 because they wanted to revolutionize the staffing business in the world of IT, and also to shape and help the leadership within that industry. And there's so much to talk about in that regard from a business perspective. But one thing about Lisa is she is equal, if not surpassing, her business involvement with philanthropic work and community work and helping organizations and helping women in business and just giving. And what you'll find is that Lisa lives a value-based life, and I love it. So with that, let me say hi, Lisa. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your time.
Bill, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation. Every time you and I talk, I'm like, we could talk 10 hours. So I just really appreciate it. And I'm just honored to be here.
Well, I'm glad you are here. And again, thank you. So there's so many different areas that I want to talk about with you. And it might be best to start chronologically and in the I was going to say in the world of business, but let's start before that, because I referenced that you co-founded your business with your partner, who's your husband, Greg. And that's been a partnership that has some longevity to it, right? Tell us about that.
It does. Yes. Thank you for asking. Yes, we just, we've celebrated 26 years in business, but we just celebrated a week or so ago, our 36th wedding anniversary.
Nice.
So, and what people may or may not know is that Greg and I grew up in a really small Western town in Kentucky called Paducah, Kentucky. If you are in St. Louis and you ever go to Florida, you've probably driven through there. I think there's three.
I've been to Paducah.
3 exits. But yes, we grew up, we actually went to the same church together when we were 3 and 5. And okay. I don't really remember too much about the early days of that. Now, Greg's got some funny stories he remembers that I don't really remember, but he can tell some funny stories on me during that time. But, I kind of had my eye on him, Bill, when I was in 6th grade. I kind of had my eye on him, and I'm like, and so anyway, fast forward, we ended up dating through high school, dating through college, and then got married. So yeah, but we've been in business. And so you said, that could be interesting. And yes, you're right. It really can be. And we can certainly talk about that. But the idea for a business really even started brewing, I would say, Bill, even when we were in high school. And my dad owned his own business. In fact, my dad worked in his business till he was 84. My mom got really sick, and he basically closed down his business. But so I saw that, and so I saw the ups and the downs of being your own boss and having your own business. But certainly, when it came time to for us to found our business, there was no playbook, 26 years ago. So certainly been a lot of challenges. But when we were in high school, Greg really had the idea, and I kind of always thought I would probably do that someday. I was always in leadership roles. I was, president of our class, several years and that sort of thing. But never did I think I would be in an IT business. But when Greg and I were in high school, he even had the idea. He said, if we can one day own our own business, and do well in our business, we can do more good in the world. And I've said so many times, and it's so true, that is one of the many things I fell in love with. I want to be on that train. I want to be on that train. So, so we went to college, and then we were recruited by McDonnell Douglas, which, as most of you know, is now Boeing, to move to St. Louis. And that's what moved us here 36 years ago. And then we founded our business 26 years ago.
Yeah, and that's truly interesting, and the thread of your marriage and your long-term partnership will crop up time and again during our talk today, no doubt. But one thing I don't want to skip, there's an area between high school and coming to St. Louis where you had some different turns down your future career path and what it was going to be. So you didn't just say, I'm going to get into the IT business. Far from that. So tell us a little bit about just that journey from I want to perhaps be in business with this guy who I've had my eyes on since sixth grade, and then actually ending up in IT where you may not have ever dreamt of that.
No, absolutely not. Well, yeah. And Bill, here's what I want to say. Everything we do, we can learn from, and we can put experiences in our tool belt. It's a preparation time. I think that there's a quote, and I want to make sure I say it right, but I've always loved this. It's like, success comes when preparation meets the opportunity. And so for us to have done anything sooner than we did, I think the timing was just right for what we did. We worked in corporate America for 10 years. I actually had, I have a background in accounting. So I practiced corporate accounting for 5 years at Mac. And then certainly, what you see in the classroom is not always what it is in real life. And I loved McDonnell Douglas.
Yeah.
But I decided after about 5 years, I'm not really sure this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I'm going to leave the word pivot for 2020. My 2021 word is swivel.
Okay.
I swiveled and actually took a corporate job in sales. And I absolutely loved it because I've always loved people. I really get that probably both from my mom and dad. My dad was like one of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. It was funny. We'd be on vacation and literally my dad would be striking up a conversation with somebody. And my mom's like, do you know that person? No. And he's still that way today. And he's 91.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But so I swiveled and went into corporate sales. Loved that. I loved that. Greg was a software engineer the whole entire time. It practiced at Mac for 5 years, got a degree in artificial intelligence. So he was really in the tech world. And then he went more into the consulting type world. So we worked for a lot of firms like what we built. But what we saw after him working for some of these other firms, we really saw some areas that we really felt like that we could improve on. And, it basically boiled down to just a couple of things. It's, back in the day when we started, a lot of times these firms would keep everything close to the chest in terms of, margins that they were making on consultants. They would be billing one thing and then paying the person something else. And it was very close to the chest. And we said, you know what, really, it is going to boil down to the people. It's going to boil down to the people that we are able to attract. So we started with that premise, Bill, and we said, how can we build a firm that the best and the brightest people in the industry will want to work for our firm? And if we focus on making sure that our employees are good and we're treating them fairly, we're treating them well, then our success will follow because they'll take care of our clients. Those are the people that are on the front line doing the work. And so that was one of the big changes. We said, well, our business model is going to be really different. We're going to be transparent. We're going to be open and transparent. We're going to say, here is what we're paying you. Obviously, you know what we're paying you, but here's what you're being billed at. And we said that on both the client and the consultant side. And it was a model that we said, either we're going to be the biggest in St. Louis or we're going to change the way the industry works. And I'm really happy to say that kind of both of those have been true for the St. Louis region anyway. And so it really all started with that premise of taking care of your people, and being a servant leader, taking care of your people, and then, they'll take
Yeah.
care of your client and you're successful.
Yeah, and I love that, and that's part of the reason I was so excited that you were willing to share some of your time with us, because there's so much packed into the story and the journey that you just explained. And I'll start kind of towards the end. My life's work in branding has gotten me to realize that the most important part of a brand for any company is its people, and the most overlooked part of a brand for most companies is its people.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you and Greg realized from the start of your business that the focus would be on bringing in bright people, talented people, caring people, and we're going to appreciate them, put them where they're best served to fulfill their needs and their goals, and that will pay off for us. That's also why you and I believe, both love the philosophies of the Go-Giver. We talked about that a little bit before we started recording. But the other thing about that, and sorry to be speaking so long, but I just want to share with everyone listening what I see from your journey, and that is you had, and Greg, you had some core values that you were going to be true to no matter where you went. And you have that professionally and personally. And that is critical. That is, to me, at the core of why I'm so interested in personal branding. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I want people to discover and clarify and embrace and live their purpose. And our purpose is defined by our values. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you embraced that so early, you stuck your toe in the water in the accounting world and realized that's not me. There's something else, but you didn't change your values. You didn't change your purpose. And that same thing happened when you went into sales. So yeah, sorry for expanding so much on what you said, but it's so rich and so important. I want everyone listening to get that.
Right. Well, I agree. And Bill, you and I have talked about this, and I said, I love what you're doing with your podcast and helping people understand their purpose. And, I think I had told you this, but a few years ago, you and I are both voracious readers. We could probably talk about awesome books to read and all kinds of that. But I had discovered one of Michael Hyatt's books, Living Forward. And I really do believe, because we talk about business plans, we talk about strategic plans for our business, but, I really do believe we need a life plan. We need to understand, to your point, we need to understand who we are, what is important to us, what are our priorities, have that true north. Because, and I tell you, if you will, and it's hard work. It's not easy work to do. It's hard work, but
it's a commitment.
It's a commitment, precisely. But if you will do that work and really say, who am I and what do I stand for? What are my non-negotiables in life? What are the things I'm not going to compromise on? Because integrity was really important to Greg and I when we started the business. And I remember in the beginning, were definitely unscrupulous things that we could have done, but we said, you know what, we will walk away from business before we do bad business, and a good name is so important to who we have to stay true to who we are. And so to that point, there is, in fact, I found a little graphic just a few days ago, but there was that really kind of expounded on it. But several years ago, I said, who am I? What do I want my life mantra to be? And I said, you know what? I want to be the kind of person that leaves people better than I found them. I want to leave things better.
I love that.
Yes,
I love that.
I know. And I do too. And I'm like, that's really, because again, at the end of the day, it is people. It's people that matter. And so if I can talk to a high school student, or, if I can talk to another woman in business and I can say one thing that really kind of helps them crystallize in their own mind, kind of where they're going, or if I can share a challenge or an experience and how I got over that obstacle that will help them. I mean, that's really what life is about, I believe. But I found this the other day and I thought, this is definitely an expanded version, but it says, I want to leave people better than I found them, to leave them a mark, not a scar, to deposit hope, love, faith, and seeds of joy. Life is about loving God and loving people. And I want to leave a legacy of love. God is love. And, I will tell you, for my core values, my faith is central to everything. I mean, it is really my intimate personal relationship with Jesus Christ is central to everything. And that kind of really has shaped my life philosophy. It has shaped what I believe is my role in the world, and all of those things. But, and as I kind of thought, and I don't know who actually, was it Evan Carmichael? I'm not really sure, but the one word, you see a lot of people saying, what's my one word for this year? And I've had different words for different years, but this year, I've really wrestled with that and I've prayed about it and meditated on that. And I think mine is love more. And that has multiple meanings for me. So if you are all interested in that, I can talk about that. But just, really, I think that for me is going to be my 2 words for 2021.
I always cheat a little bit and say, I throw a hyphen, whether it's appropriate or not, and then count it as one word.
I love it. That's what I'm doing. I'm ripping off and duplicating that one. That's awesome. Yeah.
So again, what you just shared is so important. And I just want to reiterate it before we move on. And that is focusing on people, being true to your values, and your anyone that knows anything about you is very aware of how devout and how true and sincere your faith is, and how important that is in your life. And that, so when you say that your word is love more in 2021, it would be hard to see how you can bring more love, but I know we can all bring more love. But where that moves me to is your focus and Greg's on appreciating people. And on helping them achieve their goals and helping them to feel satisfied and helping them to feel fulfilled and just worthy as people is so amazing in business. But what I love is that you've taken that out of business and, like I said earlier, focus so many of your efforts on helping people in business, and in particular women in business. And you have a terrific platform to speak from and to share from and to guide from. And that's what I see you do is guide. But then also outside of business development, you are so involved in just a whole plethora of philanthropic endeavors. And that is enriching to me. One final point before I ask you something else, and that is, you talked about you have to have a life plan, not just a business plan. When I talk, I ask people, how many people here want life-work balance? And 80% at least raise their hand. And I said, I've got bad news for you. There's no such thing. There's no balance. You have to become aware of what your values are. You have to become aware of your purpose and your passion so that you can have a balanced, integrated life.
Right.
So when you say build a life plan, a subset of that is the business plan. They're not exclusive, right? Is that how you see it?
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely. And, here's the thing, Bill, you don't compartmentalize everything. You take your faith, you take who you are into everything in your life, your parenting, your business, your whatever you're doing in the community. But this, I would be really interested in hearing your thoughts really about more like the life plan. And I'm sure that there are all kinds of frameworks out there. For me, for me personally, just knowing my personality type, I like having a framework. I like some structure. How do I structure this? And the life plan that I put together has all of the different categories. I kind of start with my values, my priorities. What are my top priorities? And then all of the different life accounts, if you will. So, I start with my faith, and, what are my aspirational goals for my faith? Where am I right now? What do I think my current state is? And then what are my specific commitments, for 2020, 2019, 2021, going forward? What are my specific commitments? And to get to that aspirational goal, and to kind of get to starting with the end in mind, if you will, to borrow a line from Steve Covey. But, I go into our marriage, what are my aspirational goals there? Where have I seen growth this year? What are my commitments now for, going forward? Self-care. And I put in that, Bill, holistically, my health, my physical health, my emotional health. And then, my next category then would be, my parenting, and I broke out every child. Okay. So because every child is different, right? And every one of our children needs different things. So I did that. And then I'm also a yaya. I'm a yaya, as I know you are a grandpa to some dear grandchildren. And so, what are my aspirational goals for Sawyer? Where do I need to show up for him? And then financial goals, what is our giving going to look like? Obviously what technology partners and our people there. So, that you kind of get the idea. And so everybody's life accounts are going to look a little bit different because, we're all at different places. Right. But, like I said, it's hard work. I mean, you've got to be willing to put in the work, but I promise you that if you will do that, it will kind of act like a field guide almost for you. And even, I was on a call earlier this morning at 7 a.m. with some other CEOs, and we were talking about decision making. And it was interesting to hear people's, different ways that they go about making decisions. Because I don't know what the stat is, but however many decisions we have to make every day, there's a lot of them. And obviously when you're in leadership, you have to make even more of those. But, even I'm thinking, if you will do the hard work, it will even help your decision making, because there will be filters there that you're going to know immediately. Well, that is definitely something I'm taking off the table. That's something that I'm going to say no to, because that doesn't even align with my values.
Yeah. So you used a phrase earlier, Lisa, that I love and that I use, and that's non-negotiables. And to me, that helps identify things that it's an absolute no to up front. And knowing that up front for me, and I truly believe this would help anyone that does it. So if I have a list of things that I won't do, I know why I won't do them.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, I try to know someone that would effectively and appropriately do that in case someone asks me and I say, no, I don't do that. Then I can say, but you may want to try Joe or Sally, because I think they're pretty good at this. And then, so what I've done is I've gotten myself out of that. I've given the person seeking a solution a potential recourse, which is good for them. And I've thrown some other people's names into the hat where they may get some business out of it. And that's, so a lot of people say non-negotiable, that's a horrible thing. Well, no, it's an absolute positive thing because of what you said. And that is, if we know where we're going, it helps us. And if we know what our roadblocks are or our barriers and we can avoid them, that helps us.
Yes, for sure.
So those non-negotiable.
I love that. I use that same technique.
And it's just, it's something I learned early on. It's certainly nothing I came up with, but it's it's one of life's lessons that I'm happy to incorporate, and that's why I share it. So you talked about parenting, and I know that you have 3 children, right? 3.
We do. Jordan is
And
our oldest, Paige is our middle daughter,
Paige,
and Allie is our youngest.
and then Allie. And I don't know if Jordan and Paige are comfortable yet with the attention focused elsewhere. But your daughter, Allie, is an inspiration to you and to Greg and to so many other people. And she has been the spark and the catalyst for a lot of what you've done and in helping other people. Tell us a little bit more about Allie, and then tell us a little bit more about your podcast, Something Extra, that I want everyone listening to this podcast to go look up and listen to.
Great. Yes. Well, as you said, we had 3 adult children, Bill, and I've learned from every one of them. Okay, let's just say that. And they're all very different, right? I have said there is nothing in the world that will cause you to explore the deep waters than having children, because it's like, again, they don't come with playbooks. So you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to parent them the best way that you can. But yes, Allie's our youngest. She was born with Down syndrome. And she really was the inspiration for the Something Extra podcast. We started the podcast back in 2018. We've done over 100 episodes now. It's so much fun. And I know you're having fun with your podcast too. I've learned so much from the amazing guests that we've had on the show. But, as far as how she's influenced us, I actually had to write down a few things because honestly, there's so many, Bill, that it's like to remember everything. But, she really, truly has influenced our family in so many ways. And really everyone she meets. Prior to COVID, she was working at Progress West Hospital, and I would get emails all the time from her supervisor about, this person, and what they were saying. Allie, and it's funny. She just is such a bright light. And if you've ever known anyone with Down syndrome, I mean, they're just very, very joyful people. But I would say that's number one, contagious joy.
Well, I love that phrase, contagious joy. I love that.
Contagious joy.
Yeah.
You listen, if you're having a bad day, you cannot have a bad day for very long when she's around, because she just exudes this joy. I was thinking now her name means Alexandra Elise. Her name is Alexandra Elise, which means helper of mankind, dedicated to God. And boy, does she live up to that name, because she's such a helper. And I'll talk about that a little bit, but she gets disappointed just like everybody else if we can't go to Starbucks or something, but 99.9% of the time, her glass is half full. It just is. And it's hard to have a bad day with her around. The other thing she does so well that she has taught me about, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, but she really is about elevating other people. I mean, she will say, Bill, like if she saw you right now and she would, she liked your shirt. She's like, I really like that shirt. Now, here's the thing. From her, it's a very pure, there's no ulterior motive. She is not trying to butter you up, because she really doesn't even understand that concept, of buttering you up. And she just wants to make you feel good and elevate you. I mean, Greg and I laugh about it all the time. I mean, obviously we're not in the office right now. We're working remotely. Paige is very immune compromised. So we've been incredibly careful, but, we laugh. And we may have had a stressful day at the office, and we'll come home and she'll say, what happened today at the office? And we're like, but she's just got this intuition. She's great at elevating servant leadership. Like I said, her name means helper of mankind. That's what Alexandra means. And then Elise means dedicated to God. But she is a servant leader. So prior to COVID, I've always had help. Listen, if there are women listening right now, I don't care. I always say, I don't care what kind of cape you think you're wearing. You cannot do everything. You just cannot do everything. So get help if you can. Get help with those things that are not Not really. I mean, they're important, but are they going to really add value to my family? I mean, I know that the dry cleaning needs to be picked up, but do I really need to be the one to do that? And, I've tried to be very efficient with my time. So like Instacart, I use Instacart now all the time for groceries and things like that. But, make sure you get help. So we've always had this family assistant. Well, since when the pandemic hit, I mean, we really can't have outside people around because, like I said, Paige is very immune compromised. And so Allie has assumed the role of our family assistant. And let me tell you, she is so good at it. I mean, our house has never been as clean. She sees a basket of laundry she folds. She just wants to serve every day. We live on 35 acres. And so I work in we've got a couple of different dwellings on the acreage. And so Greg works in one of those and I work in another. But every day, even when it's cold, she puts her coat on and she walks a cup of coffee over to her dad.
Oh, how sweet.
And,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And Jordan works for our company as well. And so he lives in another one of the dwellings. And so she walks coffee over to him. And he says, honestly, that is the favorite part of his day.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that. Sure.
Yeah. But oh my goodness, there's so many things. She lives in the moment. I mean, I always say, Bill, it's planning is good, but we also know that we need to hold our plans loosely because we all had our plans, really completely disrupted this year. But Allie, she lives in the moment. She really doesn't think too much about what's happening next week. She is going to enjoy this moment. And you can tell that about her even when she is speaking to you. Because sometimes you're speaking to someone and that they're not really with you. They're not really present. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. Not her. She's really intently listening. She sees you, and listens. Yeah. She's very self-confident. She has so much confidence, but not to the point where there's hubris. I mean, she's very humble. She would never make somebody else feel badly. I mean, she just, oh my goodness. And just,
it's like you said earlier when she said if she saw someone, she would say, "I like your shirt." So I don't have a lot of experience with people with Down syndrome other than when I see them either in person or in these days social media. They are exactly what you said. They are just in the moment and they are very genuine and they have no ulterior motive. And what I do see is that's unsettling to a lot of people because it's so unusual.
Yes.
And that's why I love the many facets of the name Something Extra, because correct me, Down syndrome has an extra
chromosome. It's an extra 21st chromosome. Yeah, you'll often hear Down syndrome referred to as trisomy 21, and that's why. Okay. So, and World Down Syndrome Day is March 21. So your listeners can always remember that. But yeah, it's a 21st chromosome. So she really does have something extra.
Yeah, and because of that, she and everyone with Down syndrome has something extra, not just the chromosome, but they have this piece about them of not having all of this filter that so many of us are raised to have or experienced to have, that kind of thing. So you took that concept of something extra, made that the name of your podcast, and tell us and all the listeners a little bit about your podcast, because like you said, you've had well over 100 guests and right. I've listened to many of them. They're pretty incredible. Tell us about your purpose for that.
Well, okay. So just as Allie has something extra, I say every leader, every person has something extra to give to the world. And I always say, Bill, we were not given the gifts that we were given so that we could just benefit ourselves. There's Oprah Winfrey. This is a good quote. She says, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's an old physics, the law of reaction, I guess. The energy of who you are is going out into the world. You're responsible for the action you put out, but it will come back to you, And so giving, what is the something extra that every leader needs? And, it's just been so interesting because everybody has a little bit different take, but sometimes it's, humility, sometimes it's vulnerability, sometimes obviously courage, so there's all these different something extras, but we're all uniquely gifted, and Allie is too. And that is one of the things that I really want to do with the podcast too, is to elevate, people with different abilities, and so that people can see. And Bill, I don't know if you knew this, but in 2019, Allie participated in Dancing with St. Louis Stars.
Yeah.
They had been asking me to do that for years. And I said, and I danced all the way through high school, but ballet. I've never done ballroom dancing. But I said, I would love to do that. I can't, I don't have the margin to doing all the practicing. And so I'm just going to give a shout out, a really amazing man here, Bill French, that founded William French Real Estate in St. Louis. A lot of people know him, and just an amazing man. And he just recently passed away. Was just heartbroken about, but we were introduced to this from his wife, Deb, and himself. And so a few years ago, he's like, Lisa, I know you probably don't have the time to dance, but would you be a judge? And I said, oh, I can most certainly do that. I can do that. That's a one-night commitment, right? I can certainly do that. So I went. Well, unfortunately, Greg ended up getting the flu that weekend. So he's in bed. So here comes Saturday night rolling around. And I said, oh, I have to go to Dancing with the Stars by myself. And I said, Allie, do you want to go to Dancing with the Stars with me? And she goes, I love Dancing with the Stars. I want to go. So, we got all dolled up and dressed up, and we go. Bill meets Allie, and he says to me the next year, he goes, hey, I have an idea for you. And I said, what's your idea? He said, let Allie dance. She can be the one that goes to all the practicing, and you raise money. And I said, are you serious? Are you serious? Because, this Dancing with St. Louis Stars really helps the Independent Center, which is people with mental illness. And I'm like, well, Allie has a physical disability. I don't see how that really fits. And he goes, no, I'm completely serious, because I think she'll get more votes than you would.
Speaking of humbling.
You're probably right about that. And she ended up winning in 2019. She ended up, winning Dancing with St. Louis Stars, and she's competing again virtually for the one coming up on the 23rd. But, Maya Angelou said something, Bill, and I love this quote. It says, every time you see me, it is not just one, but I'm standing for 10,000. Mm-hmm. And, even Allie doing the Dancing with St. Louis Stars, I want people to understand that, yes, they may have Down syndrome, but my goodness, they have got gifts. And so for us, we need to be recognizing that in everyone. We need to be recognizing that in our people, our colleagues, and bringing that out in people. And I would say that is one thing. I would tell you that is a common thread with my podcast. And as I talk to people about their leadership journey, so many times, Bill, where somebody ends up is not something that they really saw in themselves, but what somebody else saw in them and called it out.
Yeah, and that's profound. So we've kind of gone almost full circle back to the point of recognizing people and helping them to expand on their talents and to use their talents, but also a phrase I've learned from my wife, and something that I love because A, she does it for me, but also because it's what I try to do professionally and personally, and that is holding the mirror up for someone so they can see themselves as we see them, so that we can help people knock out some of that negative thinking and highlight some of the positive thinking. And that again gets me to the whole, what I call the purpose principle, which is, having as good an understanding as we can of what our purpose is. And that starts with understanding our values and then fueling that with our passion, and passion without purpose is wasted energy. But if you put those two together, they're really powerful. But what you've talked about today, and I'll put it into my terms, is persistence. So those three together, purpose and passion and persistence, are what I espouse to people to really embrace if they're going to reach their success. So all of that, we've talked a lot. We've talked about your crush in sixth grade on your now husband. We've talked about your career path. We've talked about the success of your business, parenting, your beautiful children, and Allie's dancing. All of that together, it's time for the one final question of the day.
Okay.
And that is, what's the point?
Well, I'm going to go back to my mantra. The point is, of all of this is to every person you encounter, do something to leave that person better. Now, here's the thing, Bill. I know for myself, to do that, I have to be better.
Mm-hmm.
I have to invest in myself on a daily basis. And if I don't do that, I have nothing to give. And I've said that too. A leader, you can't just give. You've got to have some sort of reservoir. And what does your reservoir look like? Because if you're not pouring in, there's going to be nothing to pour out. So, I've mentioned this lady to you before. She's just a dear friend, mentor, coach, international speaker, lover, Lethea Owens. I'll never forget one day we were having lunch. And, she has her own business called Game Changers International. And we were talking and she said, I really was wrestling with, I want to be a better businesswoman. How can I be a better businesswoman? And she's also a woman of faith. And she said, she's in prayer. And she said, it was like God said, be a better woman. That's what you need to do. Just be a better woman. Yeah. And so it kind of goes back to that. I mean, to be able to give something to someone else, you got to invest in yourself. You got to every day figure out how you can be the best version of you, because the people around you deserve for you to be the best version of you. And you're not going to be able to give them what you don't have yourself.
That is exceptional. That is brilliant. And you give a lot of yourself. And I've seen personally and have benefited personally from your philosophy of leave people better than when you met them. And you've done that today. I thank you. I'm sure the listeners will thank you. I encourage them to research technology partners, but more so to just look at the Something Extra podcast. Mm-hmm. All of the contact information is in the show notes. And I am just, again, truly grateful for your time today, for your insight, for your wisdom, for your kindness, and for your giving. So thank you so much, Lisa Nichols.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you again for having me, Bill. And I look forward to our next conversation.
I do as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.